All right, let's do a video. It's a bit late in the day. I actually have other things to do, but this was a request. Someone gave me a request. Thank you for going to the trouble to do that. And anytime I can justify, meaning for the type of things I talk about, justify doing a video on request, then I will do that. Global heating is a fairly, or even climate change, if you want to call it that, is a fairly wide-ranging topic. And today we're going to talk about the impacts of global heating on human physiology. Very pertinent because, of course, there are heat waves now all over the planet. Europe, the UK, and even if you think that a particular temperature being reported in France or London or something like that, some city, some country, even if you think that doesn't seem hot to you, human physiology does pattern itself to the conditions in which a person finds themselves. It's called acclimation. So and the reason it does that is because extreme conditions will cause the body to consume more resources and put more stress on the body. So the body doesn't always want to be racing all the time. If it can adapt to a lower level of functionality, it will do that and conserve resources and prevent some wear and tear on the body. So the body is adaptable. It doesn't want to always be ready for a heat wave. And so when it's not ready for a heat wave and a heat wave comes on suddenly, as they do, that's what kind of heat waves kind of do. Summer is not a heat wave. Summer is a climate shift. And once you get adapted to summer, the first few hot days, well, then you should be fine for the rest of the season. But heat waves are a little different. And we're having heat waves that are real extreme values. Well, I don't think they're extreme. I live in Arizona. Okay, they're not extreme for you in Arizona. They're not extreme for you in Texas. But for London, or Scotland or Ireland, they might be extreme, and they may come on very quickly and go away quickly. And then when they go away, then the body not only didn't have a chance to acclimate to the stressor, then the stressor went away. And then if the stressor comes back 2 weeks later, then the body still isn't ready, because it takes a long time to acclimate to the seasons. And heat waves are not seasons. They are events. A typical event that happens to a person is they get in a car and they drive quickly to the top of a mountain, and all of a sudden there's less oxygen up there. And so their body reacts, and they maybe get lightheaded or whatever. If you had taken a slow trip up that same mountain into an area that doesn't have as much oxygen as you're acclimated to, then your body would make changes. It would take a while, by the way. People who know that they're going to be working at high altitudes will take time, weeks, to acclimate until they finally are at the high altitude and have to do something strenuous. And the same thing applies to heat. But the heat waves are different. We're home, we're at work, we're at school, we didn't go anywhere. And the meteorologist said, well, there's going to be a heat wave. And we're all like, whatever. And then it's a heat wave, okay? And these heat waves are something else, folks. The heat waves we're getting now are leaving people really confused. They don't know what's going on. And, of course, they get no time to acclimate. They don't understand they have to acclimate. They don't realize the vulnerability they have when a heat wave comes. They just think it's business as usual except hot, and it's not true. It's not business as usual except heat, okay? Everything about it is different. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You need to be warned. One of the things I'm trying to overcome with these videos I've been doing recently is normalcy bias. Normalcy bias will just get you killed. It will just kill you. The things that used to make sense that you could get away with, maybe they were bad ideas, but you could get away with it anyway, will now just straight up kill you. And we're seeing fatalities. We're seeing people doing things that made sense at the time, made sense last year or 10 years ago, but now when they do the exact same thing, it just kills them. One of the things that happened in France during the heat wave was people drowned, young people. They went down to the nearby river, and which is a body of water, so it takes a long time to heat that up. And at the peak of the heat wave, they've had 3-4 days of heat. They go down to the river. The river hasn't had a chance to heat up, right? So they jump into the river, cold water, and then they succumb to what's called thermal shock. They're really hot. They jump into the really cold water. They're cooling off, and then they cramp and they drown. And they had like 7 young people drownings in France from people trying to escape the heat and just jumping in the cold water. And you think, well, jumping in the cold water makes sense. No, it doesn't. That's your normalcy bias. Normally, you could just jump in the water and you'd feel fine because it would already be, warmed water. It'd be the middle of summer. It'd be, August, September, and then the water isn't cold anymore. But 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, they were jumping in the water. The water was still really cold, spring water, and then they suffered from thermal shock and they died. So your normalcy bias will get you killed. And so now we're going to talk about why that is. I actually have some notes here. I have a little something for you to look at. This is AI generated. There are some flaws with this, but the information looks largely correct, and you can look at this instead of looking at me. I have some notes, and I'll be looking at those. This is a complicated topic. It really is, and I've got about 3 pages of notes, but I'm going to go through them quickly. You may want to watch this video twice. Watch it twice. You may want to look up some of these terms. You may want to do some fact checking on your own, because this is complicated. I understand that. The evening news will tell you, be careful with the heat. Heat. They'll give you the symptoms of heat exhaustion. They'll give you the symptoms of heat stroke, and they'll do that. And the meteorologist who's talking about this will take 10 seconds, literally 10, 15 seconds to say, heat. Be heat aware. Okay, these are the symptoms of heat exhaustion. These are the symptoms of heat stroke. If you see someone succumbing from heat stroke, then that's a medical emergency. They need to go into an emergency room. For heat exhaustion, cool them, put them under a fan, hydrate them. Okay, 20 seconds. You get 20 seconds. We're going to do a little better than that here. All right, we're going to do some science. How about that? But again, I'm not a doctor. You're probably not a doctor. So if you think there's a problem, we're not self-diagnosing here. Okay, if you think there's a problem, and here we're talking about problems, so learn what the problems are, okay, and why they're problems. And when you think there's a problem, don't come back out here and try to get advice. The best thing is to seek medical attention. Either call an ambulance, to have them come, and they'll tell you if you just wasted your time or not. I mean, it's never a waste of time to call in professionals. It's never a waste of time to call in professionals. They'll tell you if you have to go to the hospital or not. That's what they'll tell you. Or if they just tell you, go inside, sit down, drink water, get under a fan, cool off, and if you have any additional symptoms, call us again. That's probably what they'll tell you. Or they'll bundle you up and they'll put you in the ambulance and they'll take you to the hospital as fast as they can. Okay, so if you think you or someone that a coworker, okay, let's get involved, people. A coworker, an elder, a child is suffering from heat impacts, okay? This is a broad topic, heat impacts. Then do not hesitate. Get involved. We have a tendency to allow our bystander effect to just have us stand there with our arms crossed waiting for someone else, not me, someone to react. And where heat is concerned, we are now all going to be victims of heat. You, me, someone else. And you may notice these symptoms in yourself. You may notice someone walking next to you on the sidewalk suffering from these symptoms. You may notice the person in front of you in line at the supermarket goes down, and it's been hot in there, and you've been sweating, and this is an elder, and they suddenly go down. So you're going to find yourself in these situations, and that's what we're talking about today. Heat. And the heat will kill you. And my guess is everybody who watches this video, and everybody, I would say everybody alive today, who's an adult today, will see someone die from the heat in the next 5 years. Every single human on earth. And many will see multiple people die from the heat in the next few years. And many, millions, hundreds of millions will see a family member die from the heat in the next few years. That's how bad the situation is. So get used to it. Okay, just get used to it. Set aside your bystander effect. Set aside your normalcy bias. Just take this seriously, because this is serious. And my actual expectation is that most people who die from global heating will die in the heat. They'll die in the heat. And not from starvation, not from getting hit by a car. They're going to die of heat and or dehydration. No water. No water. Okay? Heat and or dehydration. And I have my hydration right here. Okay? And this is how we're going to do this, folks. I'm going to try and drink this entire thing before I'm finished. Yeah, why not? I can do that. And you should be doing the same thing. If you're going to sit here and do this, sit here as long as I'm going to sit here, and you're not drinking a quart of water, well, then you're not ready. Okay, you're not up to speed. Bottoms up. And so to my notes. And let's see if I can do this in an hour. That's kind of a long time, but this is complicated. Okay. High heat strains human physiology primarily by disrupting thermoregulation, stressing the cardiovascular system, and damaging cells. Okay, so thermoregulation is a term that here means you regulate your internal body temperature. The internal body temperature for a healthy human, healthy adult, is about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees C. Okay, now physiologists have actually done a lot of study on what is, quote, healthy, and it's not a single number, and we need to be aware of that. You can go outside, go running, even in the heat, come back, be perspiring, feel good, feel pumped up, and your body temperature will be higher. Okay, and that's perfectly fine because it's really a range, and the range for the average adult healthy human can be anywhere from 97 degrees to 99 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a healthy range. And that's 36.1 to 37.2 C. So round figures, 97 to 99 Fahrenheit and 36 to 37 C. So a range is fine. And so what we're not doing here is we're not panicking because we just took someone's temperature and it's 99 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're going to call the ambulance. 99 is actually okay. And what you're really doing here is you're looking for symptoms and you're also looking for behavior. What has the person been doing? Have they been in the heat? And this is where your situational awareness has to come in and where you have to abandon your normalcy bias. Am I in the heat? Have I been with people who are in the heat? I'm looking around me. I'm seeing people that are slumping in their chairs. Are we in the heat? Maybe that person just fell asleep because they're bored or they're sitting in the sun and it makes them tired. But it's kind of hot. So I'm thinking, we're in the heat. We're outside. It's sunny. We're at the beach. And someone who was just sitting up just suddenly slumped over and fell over in the sand. Okay, maybe they fell asleep. But situational awareness, people, bring your thinking cap, okay? If you're out in the heat and people are behaving in a certain way, like sitting in a place and falling over into the sand, you may be dealing with heat impacts on that human being. All right, and that's what we're talking about. Set aside your normalcy bias. Set aside your bystander effect of just waiting for someone else to do something. Okay, we're all in this together at this point, folks. This planet is trying to kill us. It is going to be successful. This planet is trying to kill us now, and it will succeed with increasing frequency. All right. Now, if that's fine with you, then I guess you have no work to do. But if you want to keep yourself alive, that's why we're here. If you want to keep your family members alive in the heat, that's why we're here. If you want to help bystanders, people around you, stay alive in the heat, that's why we're here. Key physiological impacts. So again, this presentation is not what you're going to get on the evening news. I have 4. Cardiovascular strain. Cardiovascular is your heart and your circulatory system. Fluid and electrolyte imbalances. Central nervous system impairment. So central nervous system is your brain plus your balance and some other things, okay? And cellular and organ damage. So let's go into these 4. And this is sort of in mounting severity and mounting fatality. These, a cardiovascular strain won't necessarily kill you, but organ damage will. Okay? So cardiovascular strain. To radiate heat, remember, you're hot. You're above 99 Fahrenheit or, 30 37C, okay? You're above those. So your body is going to start to thermoregulate. To radiate heat, the peripheral blood vessels, so the vessels in your arms, your hands, your ears, okay, your face, and anywhere where it's at the surface, but also the extremities, okay? Because these are your arms, your legs, your feet, your hands are great ways to cool the body because they act like radiators, okay? The peripheral blood vessels dilate. That means they get bigger. And then the heart rate increases significantly. This drop in blood pressure forces the heart to work much harder to maintain circulation. But why are you getting vasodilation? Because you're trying to get, your blood is hot. You're overheating, right? Just stick with the plot here, okay? You're overheating. Someone next to you is overheating. And the way your body gets rid of the heat is to pump as much blood to the surface of the body as it can, because that's where the cooling takes place. The wind blowing over your body, the sweat that accumulates on your skin, and evaporation cools your body. Also, you may have put your feet in a bucket of water, cool water. You may put your hands in a bucket of cool water. So your body will understand because it recognizes a cooling effect, and it will shunt blood to those places. Now, the heart has to work harder. The volume of the cardiovascular system increases because you're dilating the vessels on the surface of the skin. You'll see this with red flushing of the skin, the cheeks. Again, this is where the skin is thinnest. So the cheeks, the throat, the chest, the upper arms, the back. Okay, so and you'll say, oh well, that's perfectly normal. Yes, it is, but it's a sign that someone is thermoregulating, that they're getting hot. And by the way, you don't get these symptoms in small children, meaning infants and toddlers, and you don't get the same symptoms in seniors because they don't thermoregulate as efficiently as young humans and adults. So young teenagers, right, preteens and adults. The elderly and small children, infants and toddlers, won't give you these signs of thermoregulation because they don't do it as well. Okay, and this is the danger. If you're in a heated environment and you yourself are feeling hot and you're perspiring and you're fanning yourself, but you have a child with you, that child won't give you any of those symptoms. The small children won't sweat. They won't vasodilate. They can't do it. Their physiology just isn't up to the task. When they grow up, they will. Okay, but when they're just a little baby, they're not going to do that as effectively as you do. So as a parent, as a mother, you have to look at yourself and ask if you are hot. And then your infant is also overheating. That's all they have. All they have is us as adults. And the same applies to seniors. And you think, oh, seniors are adults, they can take care of themselves. No, they can't. Fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Profuse sweating, which is thermoregulation, which is the first step, okay? Now you're sweating. Profuse sweating depletes water from your system, that's water coming out, and essential ions like sodium and potassium, leading to dehydration, muscle cramps, and heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion is the first step. Heat exhaustion, we have on our diagram here, we have some examples of heat exhaustion. So we have down here at the bottom right-hand corner, the symptoms of heat exhaustion, heavy sweating, again, a person is trying to thermoregulate, but they also when they get pretty far into thermoregulation, the system actually starts to break down. It works for a while and then it starts to break down, and so you can get paleness. Muscle cramps is a good symptom because you've been losing a lot of water and electrolytes through the sweat. Tiredness, weakness, and dizziness. So you're at the threshold of neurological impacts as your blood pressure starts to become dysregulated because you've lost so much moisture and you're losing ions, and so the brain is starting to suffer from a loss of neuronal activity because you've lost important ions like calcium, potassium, and then you get a headache and vomiting and fainting. So if a person, like I said, if you're sitting at the beach and you see a person just keel over into the sand, this is advanced heat exhaustion at least. And there's another level past this called a heat stroke. It's not the same thing. Heat exhaustion can be addressed at the point. Okay, you can actually help that person right where they are with heat exhaustion. They need water. They need shade. They need cooling. Okay, you can pour water over them to cool them. Heat stroke is a medical emergency. Heat strokes can be fatal, and if untreated, are fatal. Heat stroke is fatal. And the solution to a heat stroke is to get the person into the medical system, into the emergency system as fast as possible. And if in the meantime you can cool them, you can reposition them, then that's good. But there's not much you can do with a heat stroke. They are dying. Heat exhaustion precedes that. Okay? So again, situational awareness. If you are with someone, if you are in a crowd and you see a person faint or speak that they are dizzy or start slurring their speech as they try to talk, okay, this is heat exhaustion. You can probably still work with them. You can tell them, sit down, drink this. You can put cold compresses with just wet towels on them and they'll be able to cooperate. But when they get into heat stroke, they can no longer cooperate. They can't help themselves. They can't save themselves. That's you, a heat stroke. Okay, let's continue. Again, dehydration leads to muscle cramps and dizziness and fainting. Okay, so you should be hydrating. Speaking of which, if you or someone else is out in the heat, you must be hydrating to avoid physiological heat exhaustion. You must hydrate. And people will tell you, hydrate or die. That's kind of true. That kind of is how it works. Hydrate or die. Okay, moving on. We've already talked about cardiovascular strain as the heart starts to beat harder, which is more likely to lead to a heart attack in people with pre-existing conditions, right? Obesity, heart congestion, prior heart damage, prior heart attacks, heart surgery, right? Bypasses and things like that. So because heat will cause the heart to work harder, if you have a person who has prior conditions, pre-existing conditions that involve the heart or the cardiovascular system, the CV system, then that person needs direct and continuous attention, and especially hydrate. Hydrating thins the blood, and the heart doesn't have to work quite as hard. I mean, it's still trying to cool, but if they are hydrated, at least the blood is a bit thinner, and it's easier to pump around. Hydration is key. Hydration is key. And if they're sweating a lot, they're losing electrolytes, which can lead to muscle cramping. When you get to muscle cramping, you're in trouble. You're now veering into a ditch. Central nervous system impairment. Elevated core temperatures compromise the blood-brain barrier, causing dizziness, confusion, seizures, or loss of consciousness, which leads to which is an indication of heat stroke. So again, these are it's a continuous gradation. If you see someone who is perspiring heavily, they're flushed, okay, they're fanning themselves, they're saying they feel faint, like they're kind of dizzy, okay, that's heat exhaustion. Get them hydrated, get them into a cooling place, monitor them carefully, okay? They can still cooperate. Do this while they can cooperate. But if that doesn't get addressed, or if they don't signal to you because they're an infant or because they're an older adult, if they can't signal to you that they are dizzy, that they are feeling faint, that they are having cramps, then they will go right into heat stroke, okay? Because it's just one thing leads to another. I'll read this again. Elevated core temperatures compromise the blood-brain barrier, causing dizziness, confusion, seizures, or loss of consciousness, okay? Now, again, if it still continues, even through heat exhaustion for long periods of time, and I'll have to talk about this before the end, heat exhaustion that actually lasts a long time, even if it's not a heat stroke, can lead to internal organ damage, okay? Core temperatures above 40 C or 104 Fahrenheit. So remember, the range, there is a range, but the upper range is 99 Fahrenheit and about 37 C. So core temperatures at 40 C or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So now you're into real danger territory, okay? Now, if you had a temperature like this from the flu, you would really have to go to the emergency room. If you called the doctor and said, my child is really sick, and the doctor said, have you taken their temperature? And you said, yes, I've taken their temperature, and the doctor asks you what it is, and you say it's 107 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees C, the doctor will tell you, get off the phone. Call an ambulance now. That's what they will tell you. Okay. So we're now into ranges of internal body temperature that are lethal. Can cause brain damage and internal organ damage. Elevated core temperatures compromise the core temperatures above 40 C or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Not that you will know that. Okay, you won't have the instruments to know that. Denature proteins, damage cell membranes, and triggers systemic inflammation that can lead to acute kidney injury, liver damage, and other things. Okay, you can destroy your kidneys, straight up, and that's permanent damage. A high heat that's unaddressed, such that it gets to levels that would require a quick visit to the emergency room. Those kind of temperatures, which you won't know except through external symptoms, can lead to kidney damage and liver damage. And once that happens, that's damage for life. Now, we're not messing around here, folks. And we are headed into an era of high heat. And a lot of people will die straight up from the heat. They'll look fine, and nothing else wrong with them, no bleeding, right? No coughing, no nothing else, and then they just fall over dead. That's not our world. That's our world now, folks. Now, if you want to believe that, that's fine. If you don't want to get involved, that's fine. I can't tell you what to do. But if you care, either about others or about yourself, now is the time to get engaged, all right? I've got some comments here. Let me just jump out real quick. Corporate state media refuses to discuss abrupt global warming. The bias is pro-coal, pro-methane as the future of economic growth and pro-nuke. Correct. That's the normalcy bias of capitalism and democracies. Well, economics basically in general. And we can't change that. They're not going to help you with this. Like I said, you'll get 10 seconds on the evening news. The meteorologist will peel off 10 seconds from their 45-second segment. Okay, they'll peel off 10 seconds to warn you about heat exhaustion and heat stroke, and maybe they'll mention a couple of symptoms. 10 seconds. And if you're lucky, your local government will post public service announcements like, at the bus stop or maybe a billboard or on the TV, PSAs telling you the symptoms, but most people won't pay any attention to that stuff. Okay, so I'm paying attention to it. You're here, you're paying attention to it, and we have to help other people pay attention to it now because the governments, they can't help us. They just can't. And ultimately, I want to be fair about this. Yes, they have their bias towards fossil fuel consumption and normalizing everything and not scaring the horses, but let's face it, they can't be there when you are having heat exhaustion. You're there. They can't be there when your spouse or your newborn infant is having heat exhaustion. You're there. They can't help you. Now, there is a system where you can call, an ambulance, you can call a doctor, and they'll come and they'll try and save this person's life. But that's you making a phone call. The government's not going to make that phone call for you. It's you. You have to do this. They can't help us with this. Maybe 70 years ago, they could have spared us this outcome, but that was 70 years ago. And they didn't. And now they can't. So it's really up to us. And point fingers at the government, point fingers at the oil companies. Honestly, that's not an activity that's going to save anybody's life. What's going to save people's lives is understanding that the heat is trying to kill you. And it will be successful in many cases. And eventually, in all cases, the heat will kill you. In all cases. A lot of people are going to die from the heat. Billions of people are going to die in the heat. Thermal shock drowning is wild. Yeah, no doubt. When did you ever hear of that? Look it up, okay? We never had to worry about this kind of thing before. Now we have to worry about this. Your normalcy bias will get you killed. It will get you killed. And it will get your child killed, and it will get your uncle killed, and it will get that stranger who was just sitting next to you eating an ice cream cone or jumped into the water. It will get them killed, and you'll be sitting there staring, wondering what's going on. Yeah, wake up, okay? There is some shit going down out there. Hi, Chick P. Thanks for coming. Okay, so here we are. Let's get back to my notes because I'm trying to stay on topic here rather than the usual stuff. I want to talk a little bit about. I want to do a little bit of physiology here. Okay, human physiology is crazy. You have to go to school. Advanced postgraduate degrees. Just to understand how crazy the human body is and how vulnerable we are to environmental harms. Okay, so I'm just going to read something here to you about the Purkinje cells. The Purkinje cells are part of the brain. It says we were just talking about cellular and organ damage and central nervous system impairment. Let's talk about the Purkinje cells. Here's a little bit of physiology for you. This stuff is wild. Okay, the Purkinje cells are responsible for balance and some other things, coordination. The Purkinje cells in your brain is why you can catch a baseball that's moving faster than you can see. There's connections between the peripheral nervous system and the brain and fast action. And the Purkinje cells are crazy. They have to operate so fast. The frequency at which they operate is so insane that they are like the highest metabolic functioning parts of the body. The brain in general requires a lot of energy and requires a lot of cooling. One of the reasons we have hair on our heads and not a lot of other places is because the hair helps to keep the sun from just hitting our head and cooking our brain. And it also helps to keep our brain warm in the winter. So it's an insulation layer that protects us from the environment. But the Purkinje cells, and that part of the brain in particular, has a really high metabolic rate. It consumes a lot of energy. It goes through a lot of energetic pathways. It's burning hot all the time. It's like the high-speed CPU in your computer. It needs a lot of cooling. It takes a lot of energy to operate. And if the cooling system breaks down, it burns up. Okay? So the Purkinje cells, which are helping you balance, coordinate your limbs, catch things, and all the things that we kind of do automagically. All right. The Purkinje cells fire spontaneous action potentials at high baseline frequencies, often 40 to 100 hertz. The regular brain operates at about half of that, even without external input. The Purkinje cells are massive. They're doing so much work. They have so many connections to so many parts of the body that they're as cells go in the body, they're huge. They have a massive dendritic arbors. Okay, so their connections to other cells are huge. A single Purkinje cell receives up to 200,000 synaptic inputs across its massive dendritic tree. Maintaining membrane potentials across this giant surface area requires enormous amounts of cellular energy to maintain the ion pumps. The entire functionality of the nervous system is way out of topic for this video, but the nervous system requires enormous, massive amounts of energy. And one of the problems with humans having big brains is we require a lot of food. And a lot of that food has to go to the brain. And the brain always gets the food. It always gets the blood. It always gets the oxygen. It always gets the food. The brain comes first. And other parts of your body, including your other internal organs, will suffer before your brain does. You will suffer massive internal organ failure before you suffer a massive brain failure, because the body tries to take care of the brain. And a lot of the energy in the brain is going into neuron firing. When you're in the heat disrupts actually at the cellular level, the internal cellular level, the functionality of neurons. And now we're getting into heat stroke. Okay, we're getting past heat exhaustion, although heat exhaustion can involve dizziness. So that's there too. We're getting into heat stroke. With heat stroke, people start to slur their words. Their limbs don't function correctly, and this is a sign of neurological breakdown. In particular in the Purkinje cells, because they are responsible for motor coordination and the massive amounts of information that are required for the kinetics. Where is my limb? Am I reaching for something? People who are about to suffer a heat stroke can't coordinate their limbs, can't speak, they can't sit up, they start to fall over, and this is a sign of a late heat stroke and late heat exhaustion and early heat stroke. Okay. Mitochondrial collapse. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells. We all heard this in 8th grade, right? Hyperthermia, hyper meaning above, hyperthermia, elevated temperature, uncouples oxidative phosphorylation and damages mitochondrial membranes. So the mitochondria themselves start to break down. The organs of the cell begin to break down about the same time, or maybe a little after, the organs of the body start to break down. Because Purkinje cells operate near their energetic threshold, they're running very hot. Any sudden disruption in ATP production causes immediate ion pump failure. So at the internal mechanisms of the cell itself, in these Purkinje cells, and in the entire neurological structure of the body, energy is critical. It's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Absolutely critical. And the mitochondria are where the energy is manufactured and made available to the cell. And that starts to break down. The mitochondria, which are energetically massive, they handle so much energy that when your body is overheating, the mitochondria, which are running hot all the time, just basically explode. They just fail. And when they fail, then the cells begin to not have the energy they need. The energy has to be constantly available. Every single millisecond, there has to be energy coming into the cell to manage all the ion pumps, to manage the 200,000 dendrites in the dendritic tree so that the body can continue to function. And when that system starts to break down, you enter heat stroke and you're about to die. Someone's about to die. And the symptoms are, again, it has to be repeated. Slurring speech, inability to reason. Okay, they're not just feeling faint. They can't even tell you they're faint. Slurring speech. The tongue doesn't work. The jaw muscles can't articulate. The larynx doesn't work. Slurring speech. Inability to use their limbs correctly. Inability to sit up. They start slumping. They start falling over. That's heat stroke. They're dead. They're dead. You just have to assume that they're about to die. This is serious, people. This is serious. You're going to be in the heat. And you're going to see people. You won't recognize it, but you're going to see people suffering from heat exhaustion. And then you're going to see them die from heat stroke. And that's not your fault. That's our situation. So let's talk about heat stroke. Everything I've been talking about so far is really heat exhaustion. The redness in the face and the neck and the chest, the profuse sweating, and then you start to veer into heat stroke. Lethargy, weariness, faintness. Somebody says, I feel faint, or you may even see them faint. They may pass out, and by the time they're getting into passing out, they're actually veering hard into heat stroke. Okay. Heat stroke is a severe, life-threatening medical emergency. You can cope with heat exhaustion. Heat stroke is lethal. It occurs when the body's internal temperature regulation fails completely. Thermal regulation fails. And this happens earlier in infants and seniors. Thermal regulation is already not very good. It fails sooner. You will lose your babies and your elders to heat stroke, causing core body temperature to spike rapidly, typically above 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees C. You won't know that because you don't have a thermometer. You'll be outside, you'll be in the car, you'll be at the beach, you'll be in the car, you'll be driving to the mall, you'll be driving back from the mall, and you won't even know that your child has just passed out. All you'll notice is they got really quiet. And then when you get out of the car, they're dead. No, I'm not joking, people. I am not kidding. This is how it's going to be. Birds and mammals are actually pretty good at thermal regulation, as well as some deep sea fish. Other animals are not. The reptiles, for example. The reptiles have to hide from the heat. You may be aware of this. They hide during the day and they come out at night. In deserts and places like that. They hide during the day and they come out at night because they can't thermoregulate. They'll just kill them outright. But infants and elders also are bad at thermal regulation. Primary warning signs of heat stroke. Altered mental state. This is the primary one, meaning this is the one you're most likely to detect. Okay. Unlike mild heat illness or heat exhaustion, heat stroke directly affects central nervous system logic. You can look for confusion, disorientation, or delirium. So people saying weird things like they're on drugs or something, right? That's just a sign that their central nervous system, their brain, is breaking down. If they start becoming deluded, talking about people that aren't there, talking like they're dreaming, that's their brain breaking down, and they're about to die. Slurred speech or agitation, okay? Agitation because, again, the Purkinje cells aren't working. They're trying to manage, but they really can't. Dizziness, loss of coordination, or seizures. Again, brain is breaking down, can't control the body. Unconsciousness or coma. By the time someone falls unconscious, say they're sitting at the beach and they just slump over where they're sitting, okay? That could be late stage heat exhaustion, from dizziness or whatever, but they could also just have died. They may have just fell over dead. Or they just fell over and they may be about to die from heat stroke. That's how fast this can happen. And it's especially true, again, with infants and elders. Your first symptom with a child that they're in distress, it might be that they're dead. No joke. High core body temperature. A body temperature measuring 104 Fahrenheit or 40 degrees C or higher is symptomatic of a heat stroke. You won't know that because you won't have a way to measure body temperature. But if you're home with your child or your elder and they're showing signs of heat stress and you take their body temperature and it's 40 degrees C or it's 104 degrees Fahrenheit, you call the hospital. You call whatever emergency number, 911, whatever it is for you, and you call your emergency number and tell them, I have someone here who has succumbed to heat, and I have a body temperature of 40 degrees C or 104 Fahrenheit, however you're measuring it, and I need emergency response right now. And if you have that kind of data and you know what's happening and you are in the heat and you've been worried about heat exhaustion and heat stroke, then you're going to make that call and they're going to say, we are sending someone now. And all you can do is try to cool them off. Although if they're having a heat stroke, it may be too late for that. You got to pay attention. Next symptom would be rapid heart rate. We'll do this first. Altered sweating and skin changes. Classic heat stroke, common in non-exertional risk groups. Okay, so you're like children and elders. The skin is hot, it's red, it's dry to the touch because sweating mechanisms have failed. They're no longer thermoregulating. So the body is desperately trying to shunt as much heat to the surface as possible. The sweating has failed, but their skin may be really hot, really red. And plus they're probably unconscious at this point. And that's heat stroke. And they're about to die. And maybe dead already. You have very few options at this point, except to cool them as much as you can. Pour water over them, not in their face, because they may be having trouble breathing. Pour water over them. Put cold towels, wet cold towels over them. Be aware of thermal shock. Right, that's still a thing, and so you don't want to put them in ice necessarily because they can't talk to you. So you're trying to cool them as much as you can. Use wet towels. Pour water over them, not in their face, and get on the phone as fast as you can. And hope that somebody can come because heat stroke is lethal. Exertional heat stroke, which you can have if you're running out in the heat. Why would you do that? Well, people do weird things. Skin may feel hot and either damp or heavy sweat. Okay, again, if your body temperature is elevated, then you're in heat stroke. And it doesn't matter how that happened. If you were outside running in the heat, which is dumb, don't do that, people. Well, that's part of my routine. Well, then change your routine, okay? Run at 4 o'clock in the morning, although it has to be a cool 4 o'clock in the morning, which in the future they won't be. Figure it out. But don't do something just because it's what you've always done and you think you're okay, because you're not. That's your normalcy bias convincing you to do something stupid, okay? Rapid heart rate and breathing. The pulse is strong and rapid as the heart strains to pump blood to the skin for cooling. Remember, the skin is bright red. The skin is hot. There's no sweating because that part is shut down already. But the pulse is rapid. It's really strong. The body's trying to cool itself and it's pushing as much blood to the surface as possible. And the skin is really red. Okay, they could be just beet red from top to bottom. And breathing is fast and shallow. It's panting, right? You've seen a dog pant when the tongue is hanging out. That's panting. So humans can do that too. And it's a way to try to use the lungs and the vascularization of the lungs to cool the body from the inside out. It won't even be a conscious thing. It'll be what the body does. So if you have somebody whose pulse is rapid and strong, they're panting, they're breathing hard, not hard, but shallow, but rapidly, they're panting, then they're in heat stroke and they're going to die. This is highly abnormal. You've never seen people panting. And of course, little infants won't do that because they don't thermoregulate. And elders won't do that either. They'll just sit there in their chair and they'll die in place. But you have to be situationally aware all the time. Or not. I mean, I can't tell you what to do. Also, severe headache and nausea. This goes back to changes in the brain chemistry, changes in the blood pressure, changes in how much blood is making its way to the brain. Because at some point, the body, in order to try and save everything, it has to shunt even blood away from the brain in the end and try and cool the blood at the surface of the body. This is desperation. It's moving blood from the brain, which is the most critical organ in the body, risking brain death to try and cool the body so the body doesn't die. Heat stroke is lethal, and someone is about to die. Before I go on to the next point, and we're almost done here, let me look at some questions here. I'll skip the ones where you folks are talking to each other. That's fine. Many think a return to normal is the future. That's normalcy bias. That's a human thing, folks. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how humans are. That's how we can get through our day. We find patterns, we rely on those patterns being the same, and we expect tomorrow to be like today because today was like yesterday. But at this point, because of global heating and the changes we're making to the planet, these are no longer safe assumptions. The future will not be like today. The future will be something you can't anticipate. And either you start to adapt or you will die. Because the future is lethal. And heat exhaustion leading to heat stroke is going to kill people. And every adult alive today will live to see family members, neighbors, people at work, people in line at the grocery store die from heat stroke. You will see this. Yeah, you can get involved or you could not. If it's a family member, maybe you care, maybe you don't. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're about, but you will live to see this. And if you chose to do nothing, you'll live to deal with that. And if you couldn't do anything, you'll live to deal with that. So where are we at here? What are we doing? What are we going to do? There will be a normal, but it won't be for anything that's living today. I've been seeing pundits talking about what they call the new normal, and other people will say, no, this isn't normal because this is also going to change. Our normalcy bias is forcing us to have this conversation. And what does normal mean? What does normal mean for the future? What will normal be in the future? Just drop it altogether. You have no basis for the use of the word normal, period, going forward. We are now in abnormality. Everything is going to be abnormal. When will it become normal again? Well, it will never be like it was in the past, ever, never again. That normal, that's done. Oh, that's behind us now. What are we going into? Will there be a new normal? Well, maybe, a century from now? 1,000 years from now? Maybe things settle down? Seriously, the science has some things to say on this. And if we go into hothouse Earth, and this Earth has to search the multivariate space. Sorry, we're doing science here, okay? If the Earth dynamic system now has to search through all the phase space to find the next stable equilibrium, that could take 200 or 300 years. No joke. And if none of that made any sense to you, well, welcome to the problem, okay? We're now dealing with Earth system dynamics. And what in your comfortable suburban life prepared you for that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And now your normalcy bias isn't going to serve you because you don't know anything about Earth system dynamics. What can I say? That's not your fault. That's your problem. You got a problem. What can you do about it? Start paying attention. Are you drinking? Are you drinking water? That's the best thing. That was good. Environmental Coffee House, thank you for watching, and I do hope you come back. I mean, we are. We are on YouTube, right? Oh, and while you're at it, since we're here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you feel like it, I think you should, share the video. That's something I don't ask people to do very often. Share the video, okay? Share this with your parents, especially if they're elders. Share this with someone who has a new child or is planning on having children in the near. Because everyone who's planning on having children for the next couple of centuries has to know everything in this video. I kid you not. That's where we are now. Oh, that's overstating it. That's hyperbole. That's fear mongering. Oh, think whatever you like. You can think whatever you like, boys and girls. You're all going to live to see this play out. In your home, in your place of work, in the line at the grocery store, on the freeway, cars veering off the road into the ditch, people having a heat stroke behind the wheel. You're going to live to see that. Every one of us is going to live to see that. This summer, you're going to see some of that. It really helps me to listen to you and the grim things you tell us, even though I do not see it academically. I feel it in my bones and my soul. I'll reach you however I can reach you, okay? I'll reach you however. Your soul, your bones, any part of your brain that can wrap itself around this. My job is not to sell sweaters or coffee mugs. My job is not here to help you buy something on my affiliate link or even do me a super chat or subscribe to my Patreon, none of which I have. Okay, I'm not here to do any of those things. I'm just here to spend my time while I am drinking a glass of water and just the brain dump. Okay, I'm just dumping from my brain what I know. And I'm hoping you pick some of it up. If you pick it up in your bones or in your soul, then that's a good place to go. That's where it has to go. That's where it lives after this. And if all you get from this video is situational awareness and setting aside your normalcy bias and doing that deliberately, then you're better off. Okay? We can do this at the behavioral level. We can do this with fear. We can become afraid. If we have an elder, if we have an infant, and we have people we care about, we can simply become afraid. I mean, that works, people. Fear actually works. That helps you set aside your normalcy bias. And that also helps you set aside your bystander effect. If you're afraid in advance, then when it happens, when it goes down in front of you, you move. You do the move. You help. You ask the person, are you feeling well? Can you speak? Count backwards from 3. Okay, you can get engaged if you're afraid in advance, and you know that people are going to die because they will. And if that makes you afraid, good. That's a good start, okay? Watch this video more than once is the next thing you can do. So this one's from my wife. As he and the scientists say, we need to keep fossil fuels in the ground now and get to the lifeboats equal village life, where all our needs are met by ourselves and our neighbors without fossil fuels. That is on topic because I'm talking here about a village of people who are concerned. And as our concerns mount and as we start taking care of each other more actively, meaning literally in line at the supermarket, literally at the beach, as we are situationally aware and looking out for the people around us, we create a kind of community of watchfulness, all right, and awareness. And as things get worse and worse for us as individuals and as families and groups, our awareness of each other and our awareness of our shared calamity will bring us together in tighter and tighter communities. And that is the road to survival. That is the road to survival. Tighter communities, looking out for each other, situational awareness, caring for each other, actively caring, making sure that people get into cool places, that they have access to cooling centers or water or whatever they need. Always watching the infants, the small children, watching the seniors, speaking to them, engaging with your children. If they fall asleep or they slump over, try to wake them up, see if they're okay. Just being engaged with each other. And if you're next to someone who's suffering from what's clearly heat exhaustion, then get engaged. And if you can't do anything else for them, call the emergency number and get the paramedics. Just do that. Be ready to do that. And that starts with awareness. And awareness starts with fear. And I don't know how else to sell this. I do not know how else to sell this. I don't like what Cougar is saying, but it helps me to hear him say it. Today, London is 39 degrees C. So to me, it's coming and I know it. Remember, the threshold is 40 C. Okay, above 40 C, if your body gets above 40 C and you are not thermoregulating, and if you're an elder or an infant, that's your situation, okay? If the temperature gets to 40 C and you are not thermoregulating, then your body is going to be 40 C. And at 40 C or 107 degrees Fahrenheit, you fall over dead. Because heat stroke can kill you quickly. It destroys your kidneys, destroys your liver, destroys your nervous system, destroys your brain. You can't help yourself. And unless there's someone nearby who can help you, and you communicate with that person ahead, saying, I feel dizzy. I feel like I'm having a heat event. I need to lay down. Please find me some water. Put some water over me. While you're able to communicate, you can save yourself. But when you go down and you pass out, then you're done. You are done. Now, if someone is nearby you who knows what to do, then you're not dead, but you are done. You are not participating in your own survival at that point. And that's how a lot of people will die. No one will be nearby. They'll be by themselves. They'll be alone, living alone. They'll be at the beach alone. They'll be at the park alone, or just with a bunch of people that don't care or don't understand. And they'll die alone, untreated, when a phone call might have saved them. And what world are we living in? That's your choice. You have to choose now. What kind of world are we living in? Are we living in a world where we're going to take care of each other? Or are we living in a world of bystander syndrome and normalcy bias? I don't know. That's for you to decide. And let's see if I have anything else to say here. Okay, let's say a little bit something about the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. I have already alluded to that, but this is important as the finishing statement here. Heat exhaustion requires immediate intervention, meaning you can help the person, and the person can help themselves. You may notice you're becoming dizzy. You may notice that you're becoming faint. Okay, you can still help yourself. You can always drink more water, right? But heat stroke is different. The person suffering from heat stroke is out of the picture. And unless some bystander, some caring individual comes in and works with them and helps alleviate their symptoms, or basically just calls the emergency number, right? Then they're going to die. And it's as simple as that. So let's talk about the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Heat exhaustion, again, involves heavy sweating, muscle cramps, and weakness. But mentally, the person is still there. If you're suffering from heat exhaustion, you'll have cramps and you'll have weakness, maybe dizziness even, but you'll still be able to communicate. You'll still be able to get up from your seat, go get a glass of water, pour water over your head. There's things you can do. Heat stroke is different. Heat stroke can be quickly fatal. Heat stroke can be quickly fatal. even instantly fatal. Involves central nervous system damage, confusion, altered behavior, or collapse, and requires immediate emergency care. A person can still cooperate in saving themselves from heat exhaustion. You can save yourself from heat exhaustion, right? You can get up, you can go into the shade, you can get water, you can pour water over your head. You can call the emergency number, okay? When you are suffering from heat exhaustion is not fatal, but heat exhaustion veers quickly into heat stroke, and heat stroke is any medical emergency. You should try and cool that person as best you can, but you have to call the emergency number at that point. You have no choice. And heat stroke is when everything is breaking down, including internal organs. And even if they get to the hospital, and even if they get cooled, they may still have internal damage from heat stroke. They may survive, they may have a reduced quality of life, whatever, but they won't be dead if they get quick care, because heat stroke is quickly fatal. Emergency first aid. If you suspect someone is suffering from heat stroke, call emergency services immediately and begin cooling the person right away. Move to a cooler location. Get the person into shade or an air-conditioned room. Cool rapidly. Submerge in water or an ice bath if available, or apply ice packs or cold, wet towels to the neck, armpits, and groin. Okay? Pour water over the body. Again, thermal shock is a thing. And people who are going from a hot environment into cold water can kill themselves. And that's true. But if you're dealing with somebody who's suffering from heat stroke, your least concern is thermal shock. They're about to die from the heat. Heat stroke is lethal. They will die from heat stroke. They might die from thermal shock. But if you try to cool them rapidly. But if you do not attempt to cool them rapidly, they will die from heat stroke. They might die from thermal shock, but they will die from heat stroke. And that's why you have to avoid these situations. Early intervention is key. When you're in the heat, early detection of heat exhaustion or any symptoms of that, like profuse sweating, redness around the face or the neck, which is the part you can see. You can't see the rest of their body, but you can see the face and the neck. Profuse sweating, redness, okay? Dizziness, weariness, which is just one step away from dizziness, right? Lethargy, people just kind of lose their ability to engage, and then they become dizzy, all right? And when they're dizzy, they're just a moment away from just falling over. And when they're falling over dead, unless you act quickly. When they're complaining of dizziness or lightheadedness and then they fall over, they are falling over dead. And I understand nothing in your quiet, well-adjusted suburban life prepared you for this. I understand. You have my sympathy. I'm sorry it happened. This is now our world. Deal with it, okay? Do not offer fluids if a person is confused, lethargic, or unconscious, as this creates a choking hazard. Remember, their brain is shutting down. Their Purkinje cells, right, that do all the coordination, right, aren't working. That also means they can't swallow. The tongue isn't working. The airways aren't working correctly to direct the food into the water into the esophagus. You can put water over them. Do not put water in their face, because they won't be able to, cough or sneeze or whatever has to happen to get the water out of their lungs. They're not functioning. Don't put water over their face. Wet a towel and put it on their forehead and keep wetting it. Keep putting it on their forehead. Keep wrapping it in their skull. Okay, you're trying to save the brain from heat. Put wet towels on their body and keep changing them. Pour water over the wet towels and keep pouring water over the wet towels. Put wet towels over their body, strip their body, take all their clothes off. They're sitting there. They have pants on, shirt, a hoodie. Who knows what they're wearing? Take it all off. Pour water over their body, bottled water, whatever you have, right? and put wet towels over them. Pour water over the wet towels. This is a medical emergency. They're going to die. Take their clothes off. Whatever it takes to cool them off. And do that with absolute ferocity, or they will die. Okay? If they're suffering from heat stroke, they can't drink. If they're suffering from heat exhaustion, they must drink. And I'm sorry that this is confusing. This is our world now. It's complicated, right? Oh, no, that's too complicated. I can't remember all that. Well, then, okay, fine. You can't remember all that. Heat exhaustion needs water. Heat stroke, they'll choke and die on the water if you try and put water down their throat. Pour water over their body. Pour water over their scalp. Cover them with towels. Pour water over the towels. Don't try until they're conscious enough and they can speak and they can articulate and tell you, yes, I need water. If they can speak, then that means they're using their tongue and their larynx and their glottis and everything else. It's working, okay? And that means that the brain is working and they can coordinate their motions. And if you can hand them a bottle of water and they can drink it, then that's fine, okay? Because that's heat exhaustion. But if they've fallen over, you can't put water down them anymore. That was 5 minutes ago. Now you're into a heat stroke. You have to put water over their head, over their body, take their clothes off, whatever you have to do, okay? Definitely put them in the shade. Get them out of the car. Put them in the shade of the car, not on the asphalt, because the asphalt will be 170 degrees, so that's not going to help at all, right? So if you're out on the freeway and people are having a heat stroke, now you have a whole nother set of problems. Well, there you go. Sorry. You're out in the middle of a freeway and someone just ran into the back of your car and you go there and you're mad and you're gesticulating with your hands and you notice they're slumped over behind the steering wheel and you're thinking, holy shit, what have I got? And you pull them out and their skin is red and they're hot and their eyes are fluttering and they're slurring their speech and you're thinking, well, that's a heat stroke. They're having a heat stroke. And do you have bottled water? Do you have a case of bottled water in the back of your car just for this kind of an emergency? Is there a store nearby? Call the ambulance, but you're in the middle of a freeway and the freeway is blocked with cars and the ambulance isn't going to come. What can you do? Well, it starts with noticing that someone is having a medical emergency. And we're all going to have to become aware of medical emergencies. So that's what I've got. If any part of this was difficult, emotionally it's difficult. What can I say? But if any of this was difficult to comprehend, watch it again. Go to other YouTube videos and watch videos trying to explain the physiological basis of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. It wouldn't hurt to have a little laminated card telling you what to look for so that you can pull it out of your pocket. You can probably buy that even on Amazon, right? You can probably buy a little laminated card that'll fit in your pocket or fit in your wallet, in your purse. And it summarizes all of this. In fact, this image that I have right here is kind of like that, right? Maybe you should print this image with my beautiful face and get it laminated or just print it and just cut it out and stick it in your wallet, stick it in your purse and just have it around. And again, because body temperature is important, if you're home, make sure you have a way to check a person's body temperature. It won't work if all you have is just a thermometer that goes in the mouth or something like that. You need one of these remote read thermometer instruments. We've become familiar with these since COVID, right? They can check your temperature just by pointing it at your forehead and taking a temperature reading. Everyone should now have one of those. You can check your own temperature. You just point at your forehead, take a temperature, and read the thing, okay? Instantly. Everybody should have these. They're like $15 on Amazon. You can get them at CVS or Walgreens or whatever your apothecary is, right? Just walk in there and just buy it right off the shelf. Put a battery in it. Put a couple of batteries in the drawer for backups. And then anytime you need to check someone's temperature, learn how to check your own. Learn how to check the temperature of your children. If you're going to the beach, take it with you to the beach. Check the temperature of the infants. Check the temperature of your grandparents, okay? Just say, yep, I'm going to take a temperature check. And get everybody used to that. You got your thing. You take the temperature check. You look at the number. And everybody gets used to that. It's not a weird thing. It's not a COVID thing. It's not a worrywart thing. You're not chipping them. You're not changing their brain chemistry. You're not doing anything. You're just taking a simple temperature check using a remote reader that looks like something you hold in your hand, right? And $20 at the apothecary. Get it. Go get it. Practice using it on yourself. Practice looking at what you're supposed to be. Practice looking at your family members, your elder, the infant, okay, and just finding what's normal. And come back and watch this video. This video talks about what's normal. Learn how to assess people. Learn how to ask questions. How are you feeling? Are you feeling dizzy? Speak to me. Count backwards from 3. Give me the ABCs, okay? What's the date today? Just learn how to ask questions of people to be able to evaluate their mental state. Because that's what we're talking about here, okay? Heat exhaustion, late stage heat exhaustion is confusion. Late stage heat exhaustion is confusion. Early stage heat stroke is confusion. It's just like that. You just go from one into the other. And if you don't have a way to check their core temperature, ask them questions. How do you feel? Talk to me. What's your name? Even if somebody whose name you know, ask them what their name is. You know the answer. See if they know the answer. And this sounds weird. You're interacting with people in a weird way. Your teenager is looking kind of dizzy and their throat is flushed and they're acting and they're slurring their speech a little bit, and ask them, what's your name? What's your name? And if they look at you weird, like, you know what my name is, Mom. I want to know if you know your name. Yeah, my name is this. Okay, that's good. You know your name. And and then you can explain to them why you asked that question. Walk up to a stranger who seems to be having a problem. Ask them, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Everyone knows their name. If they can't tell you their name, then they're verging into heat stroke. Okay? You have to be able to do this. You have to understand that this is an okay thing to do. You have to understand that you can approach people and ask them stupid questions. Count backwards from 5. And we're all going to have to get used to this. And we will all see this eventually. And eventually we will be performing these tests ourselves, on ourselves, and on the people we're with. Because the heat is here. And the heat is forever. And most people will die from the heat. They'll die from the heat before they die of starvation. They'll die from the heat even before they die of dehydration, although dehydration is a step towards that. Uh-oh, I haven't drank the whole jar. And hydrate. You need more water than you think you do. If you're outside, if you're doing any kind of labor, or if you are a senior citizen, or you're taking care of an infant, make sure they stay hydrated. Lactating mothers need to hydrate themselves. Mothers that are breastfeeding, they are the source of hydration for their child.
Someone's at the entryway doorbell.
Someone's at the entryway. So, good time for me to quit. Once again, did I get to all the comments? Lost a cat to heat stroke back in 2016. Yes, furred animals are a big problem. If your dog or your cat is having problems and you don't think it's time to take them to the vet, throw them in the tub. Hit them with a garden hose. Okay? If they are well enough to not like it, then they're probably fine. If you hit them with a garden hose or pour a bucket of water over them and they kind of don't react, do it again, because they're probably suffering from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. We're going to lose a lot of pets, and pets are family members. All right? Pets are family members. Oh, and by the way, the animal husbandry industry, so that's cattle, sheep, pigs, the whole thing, chickens especially, they're losing animals by the hundreds of millions now. And this is going to be contributing to our food crisis. I mean, if you're vegan, you kind of don't care. But if you, if animal protein is a big part of your life, well, prepare for there to be a problem. And people will blame it on, the government, and they'll blame it on the woke, and they'll blame it on, the foreigners, the immigrants. They'll blame it on, all these other things. But the animals have a problem, folks. When the cattle are outside, the pigs are in the warehouse, but it's hot in there. It's not air conditioned. And the chickens are stuck in their cages in a warehouse where it's 110 degrees in there, and they can't thermoregulate it, and they die. And then you go to the store, and there's no poultry. There's no pork. There's no beef. Or the price is 3 times what it was. And no one's going to tell you that's what's happening to the animal industry. They're not going to tell you that. They will not say a word. They'll say there's a shortage. Increased demand, low supply. They're not going to tell you that the animals are suffering and dying of heat stroke, because that sounds like animal cruelty. And just maybe it is. and they won't want you to know. So that's also our future. Animal cruelty to the point where you can't have animals. And I've said before, I've said it, I think I've said it here, but I've also said it on Finding Gnosis, where a place I hang out once in a while. Everyone's going to be vegan, or at least they're going to be vegetarian. Well, probably vegan, actually. Let's just go with that. Vegan means you don't eat any animal protein or byproducts. So eggs, dairy. Once again, it doesn't matter if you're eating the chicken or eating the eggs. The chicken is still dying in the heat. So you won't have pullets. You won't have fryer chickens. You won't have eggs. And the dairy cattle are cattle. And unless they're being kept in air-conditioned barns all the time, okay, and monitored constantly, you won't have dairy cattle. And if you don't have dairy cattle, you don't have dairy. It doesn't matter if you want dairy. It doesn't matter if you would even pay extra for dairy and eggs and chickens and pork and everything else. It won't be there. And you'll be vegan. Not because you signed up for it, not because of any ethical concerns you have about animal welfare. You'll be vegan because unless you start eating plants, you're going to starve. And this is our future, people. I'm not making this up. I'm not a radical militant vegan. I'm just telling you how this works. And when the animals start to die, because we can't save them from the heat, we just had, what are we, an hour and a half talking about the heat. You think that doesn't apply to animals? It does. It really does. And I don't know what's going to happen to the animal husbandry industry, the entire industry. Be ready. Your normalcy bias will not prepare you for empty shelves. Your situational awareness is now going to help you navigate this. And what are you going to eat? Where are you going to get your protein? And are you going to become ideological and demand the government fix the situation and provide you with cheap beef because that's what you have to have, because of freedom and democracy? Well, they can't do that. And then if people lose their minds over, well, I don't get to eat the things I'm accustomed to eating. If people lose their minds, well, then they're just losing their minds. And what good does that do us? No, doesn't do us any good at all. So everything I'm saying here applies to food because of the animal industries, which cannot save their animals from the heat. Gallons of water and lots of salt. Actually, they used to do salt, but now what they call it is electrolytes, okay? Sports drinks, which are expensive and they contain sugar. Okay, they contain electrolytes. Water and salt solves about half of the problem with loss of electrolytes. But there are physiological problems that salt does not solve. The key to this is drinking water, primarily, and then electrolyte sources. You can get electrolyte sources that go into water, tap water. There are little packets, or even little pills that dissolve in the water. So you can make your own electrolyte replacement just using tap water and one of these supplements. But again, you have to know you need to do that. You have to go and get it. The table salt isn't going to do it. It provides a fraction of the electrolytes you need. We now know better because we understand human physiology better, and we understand heat exhaustion better, and we understand heat stroke better. I just told you about the Purkinje cells, right? We understand now the physiological basis of how the deep internal body falls apart. Okay, and the ion pumps in the nerves and the ATP energy sources and the mitochondria themselves, we now know what happens during heat events. And you need more than salt. But that doesn't hurt. But you need more than salt. And you need a lot of water. And everyone should have the little electrolyte packets. And you should have a bunch of them. And when you travel, when you're out and about, you should have them with you. When you're going for a walk, you should have them with you. You should add them to your water you're taking on your hike. Of course, follow the dosage instructions for all these things. But this is now our world, folks. This is the world we live in now. We have to start understanding human physiology. heat exhaustion, heat stroke. We have to understand how the body breaks down. We have to take these things seriously. Just take it seriously. I'm not telling you anything is wrong. I'm not making any of this stuff up. You just have to take it seriously. That's your job now. And your job applies to people in your family and people in your neighborhood and people in line at the grocery store. Okay? I mean, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you don't want to get involved with anybody. Maybe you don't have family. Maybe you don't have elders. But, if there's someone you care about, an elder who lives in the next city over, grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or whatever, then you may want to call them on the phone, ask them how they're doing. If your sister or your brother's wife has had a child and there's an infant in the family and you know there's an infant and you're having thoughts about that infant, call them up and tell them, hey, be aware. I'm not calling to make you afraid. I'm just calling because I care about you, because I love you, and I want you to persist. I want you to survive, and I just want you to be aware. That's all. Just be aware, okay? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not taking away your freedoms. I'm not being a fearmonger. I'm not woke. I'm not, it's not a conspiracy. It's not Dr. Fauci. It's not any of these things. I'm just calling you to say, look, I'm worried about you, okay? It's going to get hot. It's going to get fucking hot. And I know you've heard about people dying in the heat, and I don't want that to be you, okay? Just be aware. And then share this video with them. Share this video with them before they need it, because they need it now. They need to be aware. Did I cover everything? Did I cover everything? I'm slurring my speech. Did I cover everything? Are you worried? Are you aware? Are you going to set aside your normalcy bias? Because it ain't normal. It ain't Kansas anymore, okay? We are off the map. Are you going to set aside your bystander response? Are you going to get involved at some point? If only to call the emergency services. I got a guy down here on the sidewalk. I don't know what his problem is. He doesn't look good. He looks flushed. It's hot outside. He's an elder. I'm really worried. Get somebody over here. That's it, man. That's all you have to do. Even if someone is just complaining about heat exhaustion, okay, and you don't want to interact with them, you can tell them, look, you need water. There's a service station right over there. There's a liquor store. You can get want me to buy you a bottle of water? Okay, you go over there. They might even give you the bottle of water. You say, hey, I've got a guy out here suffering from heat stroke. You got a bottle of water? I need to help this guy right now. They might just give it to you. All right, and so that's because you're engaged. You're not suffering from your bystander syndrome. You're not going to sit there and watch him lay on the sidewalk and cook and vomit and having a heat stroke. Well, those are all the symptoms of a heat stroke. Look at that. No, Cougar was right. There it is. Oh, he just threw up, and look at his arms are twitching. That's weird. That must be a heat stroke. Yep, those Purkinje cells, those mitochondria are probably just blowing up to rat shit. Well, there you go. Okay, is that how we're going to do this? I mean, that was a joke, right? That was me being goofy, me being a comedian. But is that how we're going to do things? Because that's how you're going to do things if you don't think about it. I could go on like this all day. I got to stop. I got things to do. And you got things to do too. Pay attention. Pay attention. Take it seriously. Don't die.